Hey everyone, welcome back to the Self Leadership Lab. I started this podcast for a lot of reasons, but one of the reasons that I enjoy most is meeting interesting people that I would never probably meet just walking around in society. And today, I think I've got one of those people. So Dr. Angela Kerek, excuse me, is a former professional tennis player. So she's the first professional athlete we've ever had on the show. So I'm excited about that. And then she turned her career into business, and then after that into law. And then today she's now a coach. So her story is very interesting, and I'm going to let her tell a little bit about her journey. But for those of you who are looking for promise, looking to make a change in your life, I think Angela's story is going to, be relevant to you, inspire you, and show you that anything's possible at any age and at any time. So, Angela, welcome to the show. I know I briefly introduced you, but why don't you give just a little bit of a summary with a little more details of the path that brought you here today?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Bobby, and good to be here with you. As you said, my path is a little bit in zigzag, so it goes back and forth in territories where people would not normally see it. But it started off by me immigrating from Romania when I was 16. At that time, I was multiple Romanian champion, so I won 4 championships. When I was 15, I won everything under 18. And the promise was I'm going to the West, to become a professional tennis player. And long story short, because the story is really fascinating behind how we left Romania in the communist era, where you couldn't actually go to the West, I ended up becoming a tennis professional in Germany. This is where I'm based today as well. And I did that for 8 years until I was 24. Then I went into law. I studied law. I did my PhD in constitutional law, and I became a finance lawyer. Also not very, very much going hand in hand. So I did then that for 15 years. And then I left the law firm, became a partner in a big international law firm, and I left the platform to become an entrepreneur and a coach. And this is what I'm doing today.
Yeah, no, that is a strange, well, not strange, but different career path than most people have. And, I never was a professional athlete, but I used to be a professional tuba player. And then I went on to now, being an entrepreneur, coach, all those kind of things. So our stories are somewhat similar, although we had completely different disciplines in what we did. But before we get into like kind of more of your story, like, do you find like the discipline that you created while you were a tennis player has kind of transpired into everything else that you've done in life and kind of given you this drive and motivation, inspiration, if you will, to accomplish all the things that you've accomplished in your career?
Yeah, absolutely. So like looking back, being disciplined and, having this grit of keep going and, go and practice even when you don't like it, go and learn even when you don't feel like it. This certainly is like a line, a constant line in anything I have done. And there are more things, but discipline is one. And the other thing is, this ability to push yourself out of your comfort zone, even if people stop pushing you. Then there is this joy when you feel that you're growing. This this joy when you have a good feeling on the court, or you go in the exam in law and like everything they ask you, you have an answer. This when you're in this flow state. Until today, when I write a contract, within minutes, I'm so absorbed of this contract. So this is this ability to immerse in what you're doing, which I also picked up from the court, obviously. So yeah, there are some parallel, a lot of lines which go in parallel throughout my life and in any career I did. And while we talk about it, it's, as you can see, it's not an achievement. It's an ability which goes throughout the careers. It's something that you have trained. It's not a tool, but it's an inner strength, something that you have trained all the time. It's not a trophy that goes through the careers.
Yeah, no, I like so much about that. I especially like how you say, when you're kind of struggling, when you don't want to be doing something, you're still out there doing the work. I'm sure there were times you were sore, you were tired, you didn't want to do another serve, another volley, whatever. I hope I'm using the right terms. And then when that flow comes together, it kind of makes that work all worth it. Now that you're a coach, and before we get kind of more into your story, do you find that a lot of people stop too soon, and so they never get to experience that joy, that flow that you talk about? Because I know so many people that I coach and that I talk with, they're working, but they're not seeing the results, and so they give up. And they may give up the day or the hour before you get in that flow, and you get that amazing feeling, like you said, not of accomplishment of the actual task you're doing, but of the work that you did to get to that task. Have you found that true? Yeah.
Yeah, interesting question, Bobby. But let me just give you a question back before I answer. When you were playing the tuba, did you have a teacher?
Oh, yes.
So when I was playing tennis, I had a lot of coaches. So, pushing myself to go a little bit further, it's not in my blood, basically. It was put into my blood. So, because you wouldn't do it alone. We expect now people nowadays in business, people we coach, they come and say, oh, I'm so incapable because I'm incapable of pushing myself. And I go like, well, yes, it's really hard to always push yourself alone and have no feedback and nobody telling you and nobody encouraging you, and then you don't see results. Obviously, you lose faith. And this is when you have your coach and you have your teacher, which just brings you back into the ring and say, come on, let's just try together one more time, right? So this is also an ability that you train. It's not just like you're born and bam, you can do it, It just was proven to me so many times when somebody came and hold my hand and said, okay, let's go back and do another round, another drill, another run, another forehand, another volley. Let's just try again, when you were just about to give up. Now, the expectations we have today towards people or people towards themselves is, well, I don't need a coach. I'm just a loser because I can't do it. I'm just stuck. Well, now we have terms, 30 years ago, we didn't have these terms of I'm stuck, I have great time. We were just pushed, right? But language matters, right? What you tell yourself matters. And if you keep telling yourself, I'm always failing, I can't do it, I just can't do it, then you start believing it that you can't do it. Unless there is somebody there who believes in you more than you do. And lifts you up. And then you think, wow, well, I was just a step away, but you didn't see the step you could take.
Yeah, no, and you bring up a very good point. I mean, so many people don't have coaches, but you're right. All the best athletes in the world have coaches, probably multiple coaches, right? They have a strength and conditioning coach. They have the discipline coach. They have all these kind of things. And same within music. I had a tuba teacher, or and then I had professors that taught me other elements of music, and so it was this whole well-rounded approach. And so even when you did fail, there was always someone there to pick you up. And I think a lot of times in life, once we stop doing whatever it is we did as a child or in our early career, we abandon the coach. We abandon that kind of, even if it's a mentor relationship or someone in our corner, because I think once we get into the professional world, and I think when talking to you earlier, this is kind of what you started seeing when you entered law, and you're kind of everything's a competition, or we view it as a competition against the other coworkers or the other employees within a company, and maybe that coaching is a way. Do you currently have a coach, even though you're a coach yourself?
Not at the moment, but sometimes I have like 3 or 4. I have a support team. Okay, so it's super easy to talk in the office, like, about teams in the office, right? You have your first hand, you have your senior, you have your junior, you have your PA, you have your marketing team, you have blah, 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 and you have your executive coach. But what is your support team? Like your personal support team. In a way, we also need to have, somebody who coaches you, somebody who keeps you in line. From time to time, I have. And then I have my physio, I have my tennis coach, I have my, this is all coaching, because in the end, we always train the same thing. We always train, focus on what you do, have your body ready, have your mind in place. My husband sometimes coaches me. He doesn't even know, but he does, because he gives me feedback. And through feedback, that's also information, what you can do something about it.
Yeah. No, having that support structure and having people around you that support and encourage you is vital. But yet, the more, and you mentioned years ago, we didn't have words for like burnout and grit and all these kind of things. And you're right, because it was expected. And, it was, I think we were more in we didn't have as much fixed mindset. I mean, you and I are around the same age, and so it's kind of over time, it's like that mindset has kind of been closed, and we don't bring in that feedback. Most people see it. Even the word constructive criticism, I don't like that. Maybe it's just constructive, right? It's someone helping you be the best version of yourself, and so I think it's great to have you to give a perspective from an athlete perspective, because that's the one, at least in America, that's the one where we see the most coaches. Sure, there's executive coaches, life coaches, health coaches, all these things. A lot of people have fitness trainers, they call them, but they're really coaches, that sort of thing. But from a professional and a development mindset, I'm seeing that less and less, even though there's so many coaches out there in the world today. Yeah, great point. But in that token, I know your story a little better, but after you exited the professional arena of athletics and you went into law and business, you kind of lost. At some point, you got to a point where you lost the ability to believe in yourself. Can you talk a little bit about that and how important it was for a coach, or how you decided to go out and make yourself better through that experience?
Yeah, I had a lot of deep points, but after my second child, and I'm a late mother, I have like a total deep point. I just became partner in an international law firm. It was what I always dreamt of becoming. So I was there. I had my second child. I had my family. So everything was going well. But my body was falling apart. So I gained like 20 kilos. I don't know how many pounds that is. I think 35 or something, or 45. And I got a job offer which was even better. It was my dream job offer. And that dream job offer didn't fit. So it just didn't feel good. But I knew I could give up. I was going to commute again and give up everything just for that job, but it didn't feel good. And I got so stuck, because basically I realized my dream job is not my dream job. I can't do it. My body is falling apart. I have zero self-confidence. And I thought that whatever I'm doing is going nowhere. So I was at the lowest point of the lowest ever. So basically, I was walking into the office, sitting around for a few hours, just staring at my screen and going back home, because I was completely incapable of thinking or doing something. And I had an executive coach at that time, like a business coach, and talking with her and reflecting, I just realized, okay, the first thing I need to do is pick my body up, in a way. So I can't really think myself out of problems. I need to move out of the problems. And the biggest hurdle which made me feel uncomfortable was my body. So for the very first time in my life, I admitted to myself, I'm not capable of doing it myself, because I wasn't. I just didn't go to the gym. So I hired a personal trainer. And it was like, for a professional athlete, I thought, I mean, you need to be able to do that. But just admitting to myself that I can't, even if I would not, even with all the knowledge in my head and everything. So I had this personal trainer, and we started doing like once per week. I was overweight, I was tired, I had knee surgery, so it was really, really, really bad. And but I kept going with him because he motivated me to go out once a week. And then a few months in, started losing some weight. He helped me with nutrition and with everything, so it felt good. And then like on weekend, I receive a WhatsApp message in which he tells me, "Hey, what's up today, athlete?" And I was like, what is he talking about? I mean, I saw myself as, something less, a person going down, basically. Athlete was the farthest, imagination about myself. So I wasn't an athlete in my head, but he called me that. And this term kept coming back to me. And I was like, how on earth is he seeing me as an athlete and I don't? And I see myself as nothing, basically. So where is this discrepancy? Because it was huge. And I kept going back to it. And it started turning around my mindset, because I started seeing myself as an athlete. And I just, okay, I'm just an athlete who is not in form. So I just need to bring myself back. But, I had this term in my head. Athlete means, I don't know, Roger Federer, or it needs to be the GOAT. That was athlete for me. And he kept telling me, you need to train for mastery. And I was like, I'm unable to step up a staircase, like with grace. What do you say about me training for mastery? But then I realized mastery is my own mastery, is not how I compare to Federer. And, so that brought me back, and it opened an entire universe in my mind, and then I just had a different motivation. And then I started losing weight even steeper. I started gaining muscle. I picked myself up. I had suddenly had a social life, and it started adding up like a domino. You kick it off, and then all the stones fall, and you're like, oh my God, by the end of the year, I lost my 20 kilos. And I said to myself, if I come to a certain point on the scale, I'm allowed to go back on the tennis court, because before that, I'm too heavy. I was worried about my knee. But that brought me back to life, that his vision about me, seeing me as an athlete, completely turned me around. And I could not imagine, like retrospectively, how just the image that somebody gives you can turn your life completely around. When I was about to give up myself, I had no sense in my life, nothing. I didn't know why I'm doing anything. I wasn't suicidal, but I had like no way out. I didn't know where this is going.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that story so much. And when you told it to me when I first met you a couple months ago, that really resonated to me. That's, hey, what is the plan today, athlete, or whatever he said to you at the time. And I mean, I like that for a couple of reasons. Number one, like you said, if someone else believes in you more than you believe in yourself, it can shift your mindset. So often when we're down and out, like you were frustrated with your weight, your job stress, all the things, you probably kept dwelling on what you couldn't do versus all the good that you had. I mean, look, to that point in your life, not only had you played professional tennis, which is probably less than 1%, I'm guessing, of all tennis players in the world. I mean, I hit a tennis ball occasionally, nowhere close to it. Like if you served today, I probably still couldn't hit it or even see it, right? And so I mean, but you lost focus of like what you've done, and then you went through all this school. I mean, you have an MBA, a PhD. Again, less than 1%, maybe 2% of the population get to that level in your life. But yet you were there and you couldn't see yourself for who your coach saw you as. And I think that's one of the beauties of this story is sometimes it takes a coach or a friend or a mentor to encourage us because it's very difficult. And I was in the same situation 6 years ago. I also didn't know how I was going to get myself out of the hole. And I just kept dwelling on what I couldn't do versus what the potential was. And that's why I like that What's Up Athlete. And I told you before we started filming today, I've started taking that myself. Like if I know someone's going after a goal or a vision, I'll send them a thing like that. Like, hey, what's up, entrepreneur? Or, what's up this, what's up that? Because it shows them that that's how I see them. So maybe they start seeing them as their self. Do you want to add any more to that? But I just think that's such a great story and a great like kind of advertisement for why we need coaches and people in our lives to support us up.
Yeah, sure. I mean, one other story comes to my mind before I tell you how my coach followed up on this, because it's a beautiful story, actually. Do you remember Martina Hingis? She was once number one in the women's tennis, and her mother coached her. And when she went on court for the US Open, I don't know which year, I forgot, but she kept there was one sentence that she kept telling her before she went on court, and it was always, Martina, I believe in you. Martina, I believe in you. Go on court, I believe in you. And why is this so powerful? Because she didn't say, Martina, believe in yourself. She said, Martina, I believe in you. Because when you're on court and you start losing belief in yourself, if somebody sends you out and all they tell you is believe in yourself, but you just feel you're incapable of believing in yourself, you have no fallback option, My mother tells me I should believe in myself. I don't, so I just lose, right? But if I start losing belief in myself, and I know that she told me that she's believing in me, then I have this ability to bounce back from that belief, right? And this is like, every time I think about this story, it gives me goosebumps, because there is nothing more powerful than somebody sending you, on your way and saying, I believe in you. Because you will remember this. Now, when this message came from this personal trainer, what he told me actually by saying, hey, athlete, is that he believed that I was an athlete. I was far away from that, but he did. And through his belief in me, I pulled myself out, right? Now, what he kept telling me is, over and over, he said, okay, so if you are an athlete and you start believing me that you are an athlete, because I tell you you're an athlete, because being athlete is not whether you're fit or unfit, it's your mindset. It's what you have accomplished. It's that you know what you need to do. You just need help. But I know you're an athlete. Now, he kept telling me this, and he explained to me what that means and why he tells me that. And then I started seeing myself in that as that. And what happened is, I started seeing a duality in me. I was an athlete and a lawyer. Before that, I was an athlete and now I'm a lawyer. So for me, it was either or, right? And when I became a lawyer, I actually didn't talk about my tennis, because I always felt that people think about athletes as being stupid. And this is why I never emphasized it, I was an immigrant, I was a woman, I was an ex-tennis player, and all these, educated people around me spoke the language well. So everything I didn't have, these people had. So I just pushed away what I have, as an explanation of, you said, why do you lose faith? It's just a story you tell yourself about yourself. It's like, yeah, I was a tennis player, but because I stopped being a professional, I believed I am no longer. right? And this coach kept telling me this, an athlete. So what is an athlete doing when he shows up to train? What is a CEO doing? He behaves like a CEO. He doesn't behave like a kid. What does an entrepreneur do? Keeps looking for a way, to sell the product, to do something good, to bring something new to the market. So what does an athlete do? Well, he just trains. And what does an athlete train? Always basic. What does a tuba player do? Well, basics. Every day we just train the basics, right? And we have this ability to keep pushing even if we don't feel like, and we just, basically train the basics until we don't miss. We don't train until we succeed. We train until we don't miss. It's a huge, huge difference, right? So if you were to play tennis now, you would be super happy to be able to do a serve, which I can't, reach for. So if I train my serve, I train for not missing. You see the difference? So, and by telling me, you're an athlete, he brought this back into my head. This is what I was doing. Now, this is what I need to train. And it kept the ball rolling. So I wrote a book with my coach. We wrote a book, Winning Inside. With that book, I opened up a website. With that website, I started feeling that I am much more than just a lawyer. So it opened my universe, and he kept rolling with this athlete. If I may, I just want to follow up with one little story, because I did the same than you did. I coached back my executive coach for nutrition, because my personal trainer also brought me into becoming a nutrition coach. So I coached her back because I was so grateful of how she picked me up. And she's like 10 years older than me. And as women in middle age, we started gaining weight, and she was suffering like I was suffering. But she had a passion. She loved free diving. So I started to call her free diver, like you did, right? And I said, so what is a free diver doing actually? Is a free diver drinking wine every night or every evening because it's a pleasure? No, a free diver that trains. And if I train, I need to sleep well, and I don't drink alcohol, and I don't eat cake just because it's nice. So now she started, training like a free diver. She lost weight, and she became a world champion in her category. Imagine.
It's awesome. Yeah, that it's so true. Our mindsets control so much, and we hear it a lot, right? I mean, you can pick up a lot of books, you can listen to people like us that talk about mindset, but it really is and I love that story about the free diver, because, and this kind of translates into a lot of study I've been doing lately on Stoicism and the Stoic philosophy, that you build your own life philosophy. And I think in human nature today, that's one thing we miss. We miss building our philosophy. So the philosophy of a free diver is certainly going to be different than a philosophy of a tennis player or a CEO or entrepreneur or whatever. But you set those standards for yourself, and then every day you make decisions based on those standards. So like you said, if you're starting to gain weight, look at what you're eating. What do you want to be, a performer? How do you want to live your life? And then it's easy to skip the wine, skip the dessert, eat the more protein, all the things the nutritional coaches are telling us today. But if you don't have that standard and that belief in yourself, then it's very easy to set it down. And I saw this in my own weight loss journey. I mean, at first, the way I came into my new, mindset was, I found out I was doing work more for others than for myself. Mm-hmm. But once I started doing work for myself, it still took others to believe in me, that said, hey, you can do this. We're both coaches, and, you go through coaching schools to get all your certifications, all this. But, of all the coaches that we went to school with, how many of them are actually coaching? Well, maybe it's simply because they don't believe that they're a coach. Maybe they believe they're a coach in training. But once you get these skills and you can start asking people questions, because we all have life experiences. Like, you lived a completely different life than I did. But yet at the same time, a lot of the disciplines that we both went through, a lot of the struggles we both went through are the same. So you and I can relate. You can relate to a person that, achieved the highest standard of anything, whether it was athletics, law, business, whatever, and then kind of fell away and then came back. So your coach, that your fitness coach in this case, I mean, what a brilliant person. And is that the person that you wrote the book with? I know your book's in German, right? So it's like a lot of my listeners, I'm not going to say, probably a lot of them do speak German. I know I don't, but is that who you wrote that book with, about the same?
No, it's a different.
Oh, different coach.
The coach, the book I wrote with a tennis coach.
Okay.
And but the personal trainer brought me basically into nutrition coaching, and I did this like 1.5 years nutrition coaching with a platform in Canada, where basically I learned how to deal with myself, but it was a coaching method which you apply one-on-one to eating, to business, to whatever you do is the same method. The method is the same, just the content changes. And because I realized when I did this nutrition coaching, I thought, oh my God, I do something new. And I realized that everything they teach me, I know, because this is what tennis taught me as well. So it was the same, just the subject changed, So the mindset, they turn around your mindset, how they teach you to practice and do the repetition on the basics. Yeah, like how do you change your eating? Well, you just eat something different, but you eat it every day, right? So it's super easy, right?
Yeah, in theory, it's definitely easy, right? Yeah, just change it.
Yeah. So it's like simple, right? It's super simple, but it's not easy because this is why people get stuck, right?
Yeah.
There is one thing that you said which kept my mind turning, is when you spoke about the Stoics, is this building your life idea, not going with what society expects from you to think that you should be doing, but start to do something for yourself, to build your own life according to your principles. Like, obviously you have to have principles, but finding them is part of the journey, right? But what I find very interesting is that when people come to me and say, well, I'm unhappy in my job, I need a new job and I'm thinking about it since 2 years, but I can't do it, or something like that. This is the line I'm hearing. The next thing they tell me, well, I thought about so many things. What could I do with my talents? Because I studied law for 8 years, so why would I throw it away? There is so much sunk cost in the way they approach what they want to do and how they want to live. Is this, I invested so much, I can't give it up. And they always ask, what could I do with my talents? And the first thing I do is I turn that around and ask them, instead of thinking what you could do with your talents, ask yourself, what do you actually want to do in life? But what do you want to do? Not with your talents. Leave the talents aside. What is it that you dream of doing in your life? Like, we are some midlife type of people who we coach, also accomplished people in their careers who have achieved a lot, but think, well, but I still feel hollow or empty. It doesn't make sense. I still feel stuck. I have, I'm a CEO, but it still doesn't feel right. Because the question is, what exactly do you want to do? And maybe that may be a coffee at the beach, a bar or something, or it may be just, go away in the mountains for 2 years. It may be, but you don't dare thinking that you can do that. You keep asking, what can I do with my talents? Well, nobody cares about your talents, basically. You just care about it because you think those oblige you, but they don't.
Yeah, so often we allow our talents or our certifications, our degrees to define who we are. And, at the end of the day, I like to tell people in similar situations as yours, what can you do where you're at right now? Because so many people, like you even gave this example, I want to quit my job, I want a new job, I want this, I want that. Well, it's very difficult to reinvent yourself when you've done law or whatever you've done for so many years. So why don't you start living whatever your values are at that moment? Like if you want to be a coach and you're a lawyer, you can do that. Think of the opportunities. I say this a lot on the show, but the opportunities that you get to talk to people, to observe behavior, ask questions, all the things that a coach needs to do, develop empathy, develop, strategy and watch people. What better place than the environment you in? Because if you quit being an attorney at that moment, you have no clients. You have no access to people. So, a pastor and president of a university here in America likes to say, flower where you're planted. And I love that so much because where you're at right now doesn't mean you can't flower. And it doesn't mean that that's where you want to be in 5 or 6 years, but that's where you are right now. So let the flower bloom. The wind, a bird, a bug or something will take you somewhere else and replant, the seeds that you develop. Why do you think so many people, in your opinion and in your observations, why, and even personal if you want, why do you think that we get so stuck in these mentalities of not who we are, but what we do as being who we are?
Yeah, difficult question, right? So I think that whilst we are young, and I'm saying this not, not like in a disrespectful way, but we just keep living up to an ideal, right? With 20, with 30, you're optimistic, you want to change the world. You have an ideal which may or may not be your own. And very often it's not your own. You think it's your own, but it's actually put in your head by what you see, what you hear, by generational story, the narratives you get from your parents, this type of, if I start working for a company, I need to go there until I retire, this type of mentality they had. And then with 35 or 40, you start realizing, well, I need to do a balance. Did it work out? How does it work out for me? And very often it doesn't. And it doesn't because you start realizing that there is a mismatch, but you don't know what that is because you try to figure it out on your own, right? You may not have a coach, or you just feel shameful of talking about it, that your ideal, you can't realize it, that you're failing basically on pursuing your ideal. And I think we are just so preoccupied in making these ideals work, which we see in society as ideals. Obviously, the media, the films, everything around tells us what it is. And we think that if we follow that, then everything will be fine and we will be happy. And then we wake up one day and realize, well, it isn't. Marriage is, right? After 15 years, you think, okay, how does this work out for me? And very often, every marriage after a while gets stuck. And all of us live through a lot of marriages throughout our years, our lives, but some of us do that with the same person. I learned that this is a sentence like the athlete, which I keep putting into my head. I learned that from Esther Perel. She's having a lot of YouTube talks, if anyone wants to listen. This idea that I may be married with the same person, or I may be doing the same job, to take the parallels, but I will get stuck after a while, because I get bored or because it's not interesting anymore. And I have to rediscover myself in the marriage and personally and in my job. Because I can't keep going from when I'm 20 until I'm 65 in the same company with the same stuff, the same ideas. I mean, it's how boring is that, right? But we think there is some type of obligation to stick with something, right? Our parents or my parents stuck together. I never understood why they are together, what binds them together. But they were so proud of being married for 55 years. I was like, okay. So the idea of keeping it together, of staying at the same job, staying with the same person, no matter whether it feels good or bad, that's this old type of thinking. A lot of us inherited that. But nowadays, we are in a position to say, well, I can do something else as well. I can reinvent myself. I can admit that the ideal I was following for 15 years doesn't work for me anymore. Well, that's an information. And then the next step is, okay, so what do I do next?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And what you're saying is super nice to say, you have the flowers around you, so start watering them. Then the butterflies will come, and then they will take you somewhere. But if you don't even see the flowers, if you do nothing, then nobody's going to take you anywhere.
Mm. Yeah, there's so much power in what you just said, and I love the concept of reinventing yourself. I think as humans we always do, and like you said, we chase these ideals, but they're ideals that we set when we weren't as developed as we are, either cognitively, spiritually, mentally, physically, all those things. I was on two podcasts recently and both kind of asked a similar question. One said, what would a 10-year-old version say about you today? And then the other one asked me what an 18-year-old version would say of me today. Well, the concept's the same, but the years are different. And, I think there's so much value in that, because if my 10-year-old self saw me today, they'd probably be amazed. It would blow any ideal that they could ever thought about, because I came from a small town. I had these visions of what I saw success was and all this. And then I moved out and did army and did all this education, all this, wildly beyond what any ideal I could set. But if I still stayed trapped in that 10-year-old mentality, which I think is kind of what you're saying, if we get trapped in this mentality, you may reach the ideal, you may supersede the ideal, but because the experience isn't the same as your, former self thought, then you get disappointed. But in reality, I think if we all look back at where we were, 20 years ago, well, 10 years for me, it was 38 years ago. So it's quite a difference between the way I think then, but that doesn't mean I need to be satisfied. But I think a lot of times these ideals, while they're good to get us started, they're bad when we get there. Or because we get dissatisfied. And you said earlier, like if what you want to do is go sit in the mountains or go to the beach and have a cup of coffee, like probably that seems great to you right now. But how about if you did that for 6 years? Would you really enjoy drinking coffee on the beach every day? And I think that's the thing with most like high achievers and super, I guess, motivated, inspired people, is they get burned out because they get burned out with the ideal, not with what they're really doing. And this goes full circle back to the coach. That's why I think it's so valuable to have someone to encourage you, because just because you're whatever you are today doesn't mean I can't become a tennis player tomorrow or later today. But what it requires me to do is go pick up a tennis racket and get someone to teach me the basics. Like, to use the tennis example, since you're a tennis player, like, I am terrible at a backhand. I've been the whole life, but you know what I've never done? I've never hired a coach to teach me how to hit a backhand. So what I do is I just avoid it. I just try to run around and always forehand everything. And as you know, in tennis, that doesn't work out. It takes away the strategy. It takes away the enjoyment of the game, because you either hurt yourself or you're physically tired or whatever. And I think that can be translated into our lives and our careers as well. Like, get the people in your corner that can help you reshape not the ideal, but how you deal with where you're at today. And I think that's kind of what you're saying. But I'd like you to add a little bit more. Then I also want to get to how you went from law to now being a coach, because we've talked for a long time, and that's a beautiful part of your story as well. But so you pick whichever one you want to talk to, or both. Go at it.
First, I'm amazed at the way you analyze the backhand problem, not having a backhand. That was basically my entire career. So I and the story is that when I was 15, I played a two-handed backhand, and then my father changed my backhand to a one-handed backhand, which ended up me running away from my backhand my entire career and my entire life. I still, when I play now, I still run away from the backhand. So, but what you said is it has so many consequences, right? I need to run more. I need to think different tactics. What am I doing if somebody's playing my backhand all the time, right? So it was really interesting to see how it shaped me. So what I also can say that when I go on court now, I deliberately, how do I change this mindset, right? I deliberately go on court and say, there is no competition, there is nothing. But I have one task for today. I don't run away from backhands, which is resetting your reflexes, is resetting the way your body feels on the court. It's resetting your mind because you start not running away, you start not avoiding. Now, what am I practicing while I practice my backhand problem? I'm also practicing a life problem, right? Because a lot in our lives happens, or we get stuck because we avoid something. Avoidance is we have an anxiety about something and then we just run away. And that has consequences, right? So if I go out on the court and practice my backhand, actually I say to myself, I do something which is really uncomfortable for me. I really need to change my entire mindset. Now, then I come home after practicing that backhand and I think, nice. So I did it on court. What am I going to tackle today, which I was avoiding for the past 2 months? It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then, okay, I'm like, whenever invoices come, I'm like, okay, I do them on the weekend, and then the weekend is coming, and then the next weekend is coming. It's nothing big, right? But you keep carrying them in your backpack because you always think, oh, the invoices. Now, I come back home and I became like a good invoice payer. But I'm really proud of it because I save so much energy because I no longer think about the invoices, So this is how you shift the mindset and you train one thing and do the other. Now, I forgot the second part of your question.
Oh yeah. Well, before I'll go do it again. But it's funny that I used the tennis analogy, but you're right. Every time I play tennis, I always think about, I hope they don't hit it to my backhand, or how can I, and it gives me this mental stress. But think about if I just had taken all that time I thought about how bad my backhand is and actually gone and done it. And, I talk about that all the time, take action. I mean, I'm a coach, you're a coach. We tell people to take, but yet, there's flaws in every one of us. But you're right. It's like, what is my backhand? What does that apply to something else? What else in my life is my proverbial backhand? So next time I play tennis, I'm going to do two things. I'm gonna exploit the backhand and say that that's my favorite shot in tennis is the backhand, and which I don't know why it was. So we'll see where that goes. But no, my other question was, what took you from the law career to doing, because you're not doing law at all anymore, right? Am I correct in that, or maybe part time a little bit? But what brought you to coaching? Like, well, what and then also tell people where they can get in touch with you and all that kind of stuff.
So I just started feeling, after I wrote the book, I just started feeling that it confines me. So in a way, I started feeling in a box, I'm a lawyer and that's it. And people are unable to see much more in me. And I started feeling more since that guy called me athlete, and then I wrote the book, and then I had my internet webpage. I actually coached people all the time. I just didn't realize it. I coached all the associates and so on. And then, like a big corporate firm, they started putting you in a box, and I was only allowed to write on my CV in a certain type of words. And, I couldn't just be who I thought I am becoming. And then it just started feeling uncomfortable. And then I started admitting that it's uncomfortable. I stopped convincing myself that it's still good. I started convincing myself that, okay, then I'm doing it for the money, then I'm doing it for this. It's still a good life. I invested so much. So when you start feeling that you're shrinking in wherever you are, with tennis was the same. Then there is this feeling of you need to, escape. You need to go out. You need to start to breathe somewhere else, because when you shrink, you can't breathe. You can't be, basically. And this is how I decided this needs to change. And I coach people, and I still coach one-on-one. If anyone wants to reach me on my website, there is contacts and everything you need. It's angelakerek.com. But at the same time, I was also building a startup, and I did it while I was in the law firm. So I followed your advice without knowing it with the flowers, So while I was with my flowers, I started, putting new seeds. I coached people privately. I built a startup in the background. I still advised, and everything was working out fine. But only while doing that, I started seeing the butterflies. And then that startup, I did a lot of mistakes. Every mistake you can do, I did it. Even I knew the theory, I did everything wrong in practice. And then I started building up my own coaching platform, which is running today. And actually now I'm building another startup on the side. So I'm building a startup which encourages you to move, train your mindset, and for that we plant trees, basically. So it's a movement for impact platform. It's called Active Giving. But this is, my new thing. So every time I felt I need to do more, I let myself, do it. So I didn't hold myself back. I just went with the butterflies, and that's what I like about my life right now, is that I just really go with the butterflies. So whether they go left or right, wherever life leads me, I give myself the permission to go and follow, which was not the case 10 years ago. So, I think it's very courageous. I think it feels beautiful. It feels in line what I feel. And I'm just doing what I feel like I want to do.
I love it. Beautiful story, and I've learned so much from this conversation, and I do think we should close with since we talk so much about identity, and you got to see yourself as what you want to be. What would you say your identity is at this moment? And I'll put you in the hot seat, and then I'll tell you mine as well, and then we'll get everyone out of here. But what's your identity today? How you want people to, well, not how you want people to see you, how you want to see yourself, and maybe, have guides in your life to reinforce that for you.
Well, I see myself as an entrepreneur, and somebody who, is always striving to get the best out of herself. And then I have a lot of pillars on which this is standing. And, one is the coaching pillar. One is my new startup, Active Giving. I still advise clients from home as a lawyer, so I didn't want to tell you, but that's also a pillar. So, but there is this adventurous part of me who has the courage to do what she feels makes her feel alive. Whatever the pillars are, the pillars can change, but I still see myself as somebody who is living a full life.
No, that is so cool. And so when I send you an email, I'm going to always refer to you as the entrepreneur. And for me, coming out of this conversation, I see myself, of course, as a coach, a business owner, but kind of comedically, I am a tennis player who loves the backhand the most. Because if I keep saying that, I know, and I haven't played tennis yet this year, but it's starting to get warm here. It's starting to get time. I like to play tennis when it's really hot. I'm one of those weird people. So I have to call my tennis buddy today and say, hey, we're going to go work on my backhand.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I think that I love everything about this discussion. I like that you've taken this career. Any closing thoughts that you'd like to give before we get out of here?
just to, never stop believing that you can get better. So don't accept this thinking that it's, you can't do it anymore. You can if you want.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, Angela, thank you so much for your time today. For all those who are listening, truly believe in yourself. I know I believe in you. I say it all the time. I know Angela believes in you, but it doesn't matter until you believe in yourself. And if you don't, find someone who can help you get there. Help someone who can guide you to that place, because this whole thing is about self-leadership, and you can't lead yourself if you don't believe in yourself. Thanks everyone for listening. Until next time, have a wonderful day.